bringing so many things for you.
Trucking is.
I think how come it was so exciting. I really didn't until something else comes up.
This brings us so far away.
Good evening, it's Councilor Fortini checking in.
Thank you, Councilor Fortini. We can hear you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Councilor Santos is checking in.
Hi, Councilor Santos. You're coming through clear. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Councilor Barr checking in.
Thank you, Councilor Barr. You're coming through clear.
Thank you.
Counselor Medeiros, it's Tammy from the clerk's office. Can you unmute your mic and test your audio for us, please?
Thank you. Good evening.
You're coming through clear. Thank you.
Counselor Keenan just checking in as well.
Hi, Counselor Keenan. We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Counselor Keenan, you're coming through clear.
All right, let's get the show on the road. Welcome everybody to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of Monday, September 23rd. We'll do roll call. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vincente.
Present.
Councillor Brar.
Present.
Councillor Keenan.
Present.
Councillor Medeiros.
Present.
Councillor Fortini.
Present.
Councillor Tour. Councillor Power.
Present.
All members are present. We have the approval of the agenda has been moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. If anybody would like to add, remove, change, delete anything on the agenda today, now is the time to do it. Seeing none online. Been moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. All in favor? That carries. Declarations of conflict of interest. Any members like to declare a conflict of interest? Now is the time to do it. Seeing none. The consent agenda. I'll move past the public meetings. 7.1 has to do with reports. 7.2 we're going to Councillor Tour's holding. 7.3. 7.3 correlates with with a public meeting though, right? The ayes have it. So does 7.4. Correspondence will be moved at that time as well. Except for 11.3. Do we have a correspondence item for 11? Yes, 7.4. Okay, no holds. So there's no consent agenda. We have item 5.1 will be held because we have a delegation. Item 5.2 will be held because we have a delegation. Item 5.3, is there anybody in attendance tonight that would like to hear a staff presentation, application to temporarily amend the zoning bylaw, First Gulf Corporation on behalf of Highway 50 Holdings, 10120 Highway 50, 11 Highway 50, Ward 10. Is there anybody in attendance that would like to hear a staff presentation on that item tonight? Seeing none, that item is adjourned. Item 5.4, staff presentation, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw for a draft plan of subdivision CanDevCon Limited on behalf of Lackey Chata Associates, Inc., 10484 Clarkway Drive, Ward 10. Anybody in attendance that would like to hear a staff presentation on that item? Anybody online? Seeing none, those items are adjourned. For any consultants that were here on those items that are leaving now, sometimes somebody comes in really late and puts their hand up online, just letting you know. If you want to stick for 5-10 minutes, that doesn't happen, and then we're good. You guys together? Okay. We will go back to our public meetings. I'll actually move the correspondence for those items. 5.3, 5.4 was 11.2. No. 11.2? Okay. So those items have been moved for receipt by Councillor Tour. All in favor? That carries. Our first statutory public meeting is an application to temporarily amend the zoning bylaw KLM Planning on behalf of 2538948 Ontario Inc., 0 Mayfield Road, Ward 10. Temporary truck and trailer storage. We have Arjun Singh here. Arjun, welcome. You have the floor, sir.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, members of the public, and city colleagues. My name is Arjun Singh, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of the public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by KLM Planning on behalf of 2538948 Ontario Inc. to permit temporary truck and trailer storage, parking, a recreational facility, a warehouse facility, and associated structures for a period of 3 years. Staff would also like to note that in addition to the public meeting, a report providing staff's recommendation is also on tonight's agenda. All comments received will be considered in the deliberations on the recommendations, and staff will respond to comments through the discussion associated with the report. Next slide, please. Subject properties are located in Ward 10. The proposal consists of a consolidation of 2 lots municipally known as 0 Mayfield Road. The site is located south of Mayfield Road and west of Coleraine Drive. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of the subject site and surrounding land uses. To the north, Mayfield Road, beyond which is the town of Caledon. To the south, agricultural and industrial uses, and recently approved temporary zoning bylaw amendment to permit truck and trailer parking. To the east, agricultural and industrial uses, and recently approved temporary zoning bylaw amendment to permit truck and trailer parking. And to the west, agricultural and industrial uses. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the subject property and surrounding area taken from east of the subject property. Next slide, please. This slide displays photos from a site visit conducted in August of this year. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted an application to temporarily amend the zoning bylaw in order to facilitate the site development of 48.9 acres or 19.8 hectares for a period of 3 years. Further details include uses such as temporary truck and trailer storage, parking, recreational facility, and warehouse facility with associated structures. Staff note that a temporary use bylaw was previously approved on the eastern portion of the subject site under City File OZS 2020-0024, which recently expired on April 21st, 2024. Next slide, please. In addition to the public meeting, staff are providing recommendations through an associated report with regards to this application tonight. Staff are supportive of the application and evaluated the proposal for consistency with the Planning Act, Greater Provincial Policy Statement, conformity with the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, City of Brampton Official Plan, Highway 427 Industrial Secondary Plan. Staff will be prepared to respond to public comments received and provide further advice to Planning Committee as needed on staff's recommendations. Next slide, please. Subject lands are designated as industrial in the City of Brampton Official Plan, which permits a full range of light to heavy industrial uses, such as manufacturing, processing, repair and service, warehouse and distribution, and complementary uses subject to specific secondary plan policy and designations. An amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide, please. On November 1st, 2023, Brampton Council adopted the City of Brampton's new official plan, Brampton Plan. The official plan provides clear direction and principles to guide city building, attaining its vision for the future and support the city to become a vibrant urban city of over 1 million people by 2051. Subject site is designated as employment on Schedule 2 designations. Permitted uses include heavy and light industrial uses, including but not limited to manufacturing, processing, warehousing, distribution, storage, transportation facilities, truck parking, offices, vehicle repair and services, vehicle sale and service, industrial trade schools, utilities, vertical agricultural and controlled environmental agricultural, agri-food sector businesses, and ancillary functions. An amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide, please. Subject lands are located within the Highway 427 Industrial Secondary Plan and are designated as business park, corridor protection area, and scoped appealed lands. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required. Next slide, please. Subject lands are zoned agricultural. Permitted uses include agricultural purposes, a single detached dwelling, supportive housing residences, cemetery, and other uses. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning bylaw from the current zone for a temporary use for a period of 3 years. Permitted uses will include outside storage, parking lot, a recreational facility, a warehouse, and accessory buildings. Additional site-specific permissions related to setbacks are also included. Next slide, please. This slide provides issues and considerations that staff have evaluated as it relates to the proposal. The first being a portion of the property is located within the Highway 413 corridor protection area and requires approval from the Ministry of Transportation, or MTO, for temporary use permissions. Satisfactory technical documents, including a functional servicing report, environmental impact study, and transportation impact study, are required to assess servicing capacity, environmental considerations, and traffic impacts and access onto Mayfield Road. Provision of appropriate screening, such as landscape buffers to screen outside storage from Mayfield Road, and location of the recreational facility on site relative to safe access for users, considering the other industrial activities available on the site. These issues have been addressed in the recommendation report. Also on tonight's agenda, staff will provide responses to any additional issues that may be raised. Next slide, please. Staff are hosting a public meeting this evening to share information on the subject application and provide an opportunity for members of the public to express their opinions, perspectives, and provide their comments. Staff have reviewed the subject application in addition to reviewing technical comments and have prepared a supportive recommendation report for the subject application, which will be heard on tonight's agenda. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advise of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. The development application can be accessed by the public through BramPlan Online. Through BramPlan Online, members of the public can click search for an application link, then type the file number for the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2024-0054. This brings up the file page, where by clicking the File Info tab will allow all drawings and documents associated with the development application to be viewed. Next slide, please. The report and presentation associated with tonight's meeting is available online. Once again, my name is Arjun Singh, and my contact information is posted on the screen, along with the contact information of the applicant, Marshall Smith, from KLM Planning, who is representing the landowner. If you have any questions, feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. Thank you kindly, and have a great evening.
Thanks, Arjun. We do have the report on the agenda tonight, but before we go there, we'll go to our delegations. Our first delegation is Rick Ainsley, it's a Brampton resident. Welcome, Rick. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's not Brampton, it's actually Caledon.
That's what I knew that. Rick, that's
well,
why I got
well, we all know it now. What I brought in front of you is I opposed this when this was applied for in 2020, and this is what I submitted at that time. And at that time, it was turned down, or set aside, I guess you should say. All of a sudden, it got passed. There was no more meetings, it was just passed. If I've been to delegate on it, I should have been informed. So it should have never been passed the first time. So that's...
Rick, it's on...
Pardon me?
It's on the public agenda. Nothing's passed. It's on the public agenda.
No, this was... they were parking trucks on there for the last 3 years.
Illegally.
Illegally.
Not illegally?
Illegally.
Through the chair, the delegate is correct that this is the second application for temporary outdoor storage of trucks and trailers. And there have been previous enforcement issues with the subject application. The previous the subject lands did have a successful zoning bylaw temporarily passed, but were not subject to full site plan approval, and therefore any trucks that were parked on the site would be in contravention of the bylaw.
Illegal. Right. So this is the second time it's here. This is the second time you're here.
Pardon me?
This is the second time it's here. This is the second time you're here.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So I wrote a letter here, which I've submitted to all of you, okay, which I presume you've read, so there's no sense me going through the letter again. It's pretty self-sufficient to read it, okay? There's so many accidents since that place was put in there that now 911 doesn't even ask me my name, my phone number. All they ask is, you want police, fire, or ambulance, okay? And as we go further on here, I'll show you some of the pictures. Now, some of the pictures have been deleted because there was people in the picture, and I didn't know that you can do that, okay? But I've got lots of pictures of accidents. So just with the stuff that I had down there, the road access is illegal, was never passed, okay? These trucks shouldn't have been on there for the last 3 years. So then we go now, they're going for 50 acres. There's two 25-acre parcels. There's an east and a west side there. Now the east side is the one that they applied for in 2020. Now they're applying for the west side and the east side to be renewed. if you look at the slides that you just seen from the gentleman that was previous working for Brampton showed you, on the 50 acres, there's over 3 feet of stone that they've brought in. No soil's been removed. There's water problems galore on the north side of Mayfield now, which I'll go into in a minute. On the other 25 acres that they're trying to put through this year, if you look at the slide, you see that they've already added about, let's say, a quarter or a third of crushed asphalt, which is a contaminant. They've dumped a contaminant on the property. So that covers that right now. We'll go to the next part that I wrote up here, and it's let's just see, get my glasses on here. So that's the comparison to the old and the new applications. Okay, you just saw they had the whole side full of trucks on the previous application on the slide. Now they're incorporating another side. So how many trucks are they going to be parking here? The first application, they said 600 or 615, if I recall. This area can't handle it. The roads don't handle it. It just took me nearly an hour to come from my house to come down here. Okay? Every day there's a 3 to 4 hour traffic jam in front of my house in the morning and at night. And we need more trucks turning in there. On Sunday, they're already parking trucks and trailers in there illegally now because it's not passed. So it hasn't been passed, okay? Properties to the north. I was dealing with a company called Trivest. They've contacted me. They've got flooding problems on their property. They've got 180 acres they want to develop. And their problems have gotten worse since they started parking trucks on this property because they've added 3 feet of fill, which is stone. So now the water table's backed up. So if you look at the pictures that I've sent you, okay, the first picture that you've got, there's a transport truck on its side. That's coming out of the yard. They just drove right into the ditch and flipped it over. The worst scenario was that Mayfield Road was shut down 4 days in 1 week. Shut down 4 days in 1 week. Okay, there's an accident there 1 to 2 times a week. All this is recorded with the police and 411. If we go to the next pictures, they skipped 2 pictures on me because we took them out. It says on the Brampton, notice of unauthorized access. They finally shut it down. The access to the lot it's unauthorized. So Peel Region shut it down. It was blocked off. They disregarded that. They kept parking trucks there.
We're out of time, sir. Sorry.
Could I get a couple?
30 seconds, go ahead, wrap up.
If you don't mind, thank you, sir. Yep. So Peel Region shut it down, okay? They just ignored it. They blocked all the signs with trucks, just kept using it, okay? Then we have a problem somewhere here, which I don't understand, because it's on the one picture you can see there. 8373 is the address that it's been given, and now we're applying for an address on 0? So what is it? Is it 0 or is it 8373? So then we go to the next picture, and this is a picture now of our well water, okay? Our well water, that's the ground level of our house. That's how bad our house is flooded. Now, I've been to Impact already, and the decision from Impact, which is in your files there, our house has been devaluated to $56,000 from over $5 million. I went to the arbitration board. I strongly suggest this gets turned down before somebody gets killed, because there's so many accidents there, it shouldn't be. So I think that pretty well covers it. I appreciate you giving me the extra minute or 2, but there's no sense going on for another 20 or 30.
No, we have your information. Thanks for appreciating it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Our next delegation is Marshall Smith from KOM Planning Partners. Marshall? Welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, glad to be here with you this evening. And I guess, there's been a lot of good information that's been shared by Arjun, the planner at the city here. And I'll try to focus my presentation and time on addressing some of those issues that have come up. So Again, my name is Marshall Smith of KLM Planning Partners. I'm a registered planner. I represent the owner of Zero Mayfield in the city of Brampton here. We could go to the next slide. So again, this area is actually intended for industrial and employment uses. It's in the current in-force official plan. It's in the city adopted official plan. It's also in the secondary plan that's in force for this area. So as you can see, there are a number of different employment and industrial uses that are coming about in the area. Construction yards, truck and trailer yards, contractors yards, outdoor storage, landscaping businesses, all of these existing uses and the future uses that will come about as a result of the planned industrial and employment area that will come about here, continue coming about here. Those uses will generate truck traffic. So this is something that I'd like to highlight at the beginning of the presentation here. Next slide, please. So I won't linger on these slides, but again, designated industrial in 2006 official plan. Next slide. Designated employment in the 2024 brand plan. Next slide. And designated business park in the Highway 427 industrial secondary plan. Next slide. We do need a temporary zoning bylaw amendment at this time. The reason why it's a temporary zoning bylaw amendment is due to the presence of that Highway 413 corridor on the lands and the province's ongoing work to confirm the alignment and location of that highway. Next slide. This details that in a little more, I guess, to a higher grain. The blue at the top of the screen, that's the Highway 413 focus area. That's the alignment that the province is pursuing for their construction program that's to begin next year in 2025 for the Highway 413. What's in yellow, that's the study area. That's the area that could have some influence of their alignment or be the subject of the change of their alignment for that Highway 413. And then what's in green at the bottom of the screen, that's where the site is outside of the Highway 413 study area. So that area is not encumbered or held up in what can occur based on the Highway 413 coming next year. Next slide, please. So this is a concept plan. It's meant to evolve. We don't have a site plan at this time. There is a hold in the proposed zoning bylaw that's been put forward, and I think that's really important when all of those issues like traffic, grading and water issues, illegal parking or driving on roads that maybe people aren't supposed to be driving on with these vehicles. The hold in the temporary zoning bylaw amendment is intended to stop anything from proceeding on these lands until such a time that we've sorted out all of those technical issues. So this bylaw that's before you today won't actually permit anything to occur on the site or continue to occur on the site until we have a site plan that's substantially advanced. And we are aware of the issues, our client's aware of the issues. The reason why we're moving forward at the rate that we are is so that we can begin to resolve those issues in the most expeditious fashion possible with the city. So I'll describe what's on the slide here very quickly. It's intended that temporary use permissions would be put in place to allow the truck and trailer parking to continue, but also that it would include a temporary, it's labeled as a baseball facility, a recreational facility, which could house kind of junior league baseball activities, in addition to some parking for vehicles as well. So it's also proposed that there could be a warehouse use on the site, and all of these buildings would have to be put up in a temporary fashion so that they could be easily dismantled in the event that the Highway 413 project comes through and they're in the way of that highway coming into place. Next slide. This is an example of what that recreational facility could look like. I think probably many people are familiar with the vinyl or poly domes that come about in many locations, and then there are also panelized systems that can be easily dismantled in the event that they had to be relocated to a different place. Next slide. Thanks again for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Hopefully I've clarified a few things.
Thanks, Marshall. I don't see any questions. We'll bring forward item 7.1, which is the staff report application to temporarily amend the zoning bylaw KLM Planning 2538948 Ontario Inc. and 2835755 Ontario Inc. 0 Mayfield Road, Ward 10. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Thank you, and I do remember when the application came previously, we had approved it without a hold, and this time we're putting a hold. Can staff walk me through what the process is to get a hold removed?
Through Mr. Chair, I can advise that with the way in which staff are proposing to rezone the site as per the recommendation report, there are 3 particular holds and conditions of those holds that we're suggesting. The first of which would require that a satisfactory traffic impact study is provided for staff to really assure us that the movements from the site for the trucking are to be then considered safe for the purposes of occupying portions of Mayfield Road for the trucking purposes. As well, there is another condition which speaks to the functional servicing report, so a detailed engineering study for services being for any stormwater runoff, water or sewer provisions that are needed for the site, and for it to be to our satisfaction as well in advance of the lifting of the H. And then finally, there is a requirement for a site plan application to be submitted to us to really satisfy ourselves that the applicant is pursuing the use and really is prepared to submit the necessary details to support the use itself, and showing the really location of the recreational facility as well. So with those 3 items being satisfied, the commissioner at that point in time would be able to use his delegated authority to lift the H.
So we have additional tools and studies left to ensure this is done properly. And, you know, there have been issues on the site, we all know, but the goal is to bring it into compliance and to make it in a way that, you know, is really an example for the area. That's what my goal is, because this area is industrial now. That's the reality. So, and this doesn't mean it's going to happen right away, 100%. There's still a huge path that has to be followed, and we expect that to be followed. We expect the studies to come in. And just walk me through, lastly, the recreational facility. Is there anything in the report that indicates that has to be done first or anything like that, or is that the goal?
At this point in time, through Mr. Chair, through Councillor Singh, Deputy Mayor Singh, we don't have that understood just yet as far as the timing. We would hope that, yes, that would be part of the site at the earliest stage. Through the statement that we have, though, requiring the site plan to be inclusive of the recreational facility, we'll be working with the applicant through the site plan to ensure that it does get established early on.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Singh. Councillor Tour.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that this is one of those stories that we were hoping for, where I think it was last year or earlier this year when we had the workshop that Councillor Palashi as the Chair of Planning and myself as the Chair of Economic Development, we held it together where we brought in the industry, a lot of property owners that were not in compliance, walked them through the entire process, and we've met with everybody that's come forward with good faith, with good applications. This is one of those that has come forward, completed all the necessary work done, is following the process, and I hope that this sets the example for other property owners also in the same area that are not in compliance currently to follow the process. The City of Brampton's here at the table to make sure that at the end of the day, these are still jobs, these keep businesses going. We want to keep them in the City of Brampton, but only when done so properly. So kudos to the applicant here, and I look forward to supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Tour, you'll move the staff presentation. No other questions, none online. All those in favor? That carries. The next item is 5.2, the staff presentation application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw for draft plan of subdivision Candefcon on behalf of Siva Ramakrishna Prasad Ari, 11038 the Gore Road, Ward 10. We have Sadef. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and city colleagues. My name is Sadaf Shahid Hussain, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Stephen John Poulis on behalf of Siva Ramakrishna Prasad Ari. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 10 with the municipal address of 11038 The Gore Road. The site is located west of the Gore Road and north of Countryside Drive. The property also has frontage along Belladonna Circle. Next slide, please. This map shows an overview of the subject site within the property and surrounding land uses. To the north, you'll see single detached residential dwellings. To the south, rural residential dwellings and a natural heritage system. To the east, rural residential dwellings and a natural heritage system. And to the west, single detached dwellings and a natural heritage system. Next slide, please. This slide shows an aerial photo of the site. As you can see from this photo, the site has existing access to the Gore Road. Next slide, please. The following slides show the site visit conducted looking west from the Gore Road. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted an application to amend the official plan, zoning bylaw, and submit a draft plan of subdivision to permit the redevelopment of the 0.58 hectare site with a total of 3 low-density residential dwellings and 1 linked house on an irregularly shaped lot as shown on the screen. The proposed lots will have a minimum frontage of 15.67 meters with lot depths of 49.76 meters. The proposed linked house will only have a shared foundation and will appear to be 2 separate detached dwellings from street view. The dwellings will have a shared driveway with similar lot areas as the 3 other single detached dwellings. Staff are currently working with the applicant to receive preliminary elevations of both the single detached dwellings and the linked house, which will be available for public viewing once received. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations and advancing associated final report to Council, this development application will be further evaluated for compliance with the Planning Act as amended, consistency with the provincial policy statement, and conformity to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe as amended, and conformity to the in effect Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, and its Vales of Humber secondary plan. Next slide, please. The subject site for the proposed amendments is designated residential in the City of Brampton's official plan, which permits a full range of dwelling types from single detached houses to high-rise apartments. The proposed development does not require an amendment to the official plan. Next slide, please. Under the Council-approved Brampton Plan, the subject site for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is designated community area within Schedule 1A city structure and neighborhoods within Schedule 2 designations of the Brampton Plan. These designations permit a mix of building types based on their location within the city structure from single detached houses to high-rise apartments. Next slide, please. The subject site is within the Vales of Humber secondary plan and is designated as executive residential. The proposed development of a linked house does not fall within this use, and an amendment to the secondary plan is therefore required to permit the proposed development. Next slide, please. The subject site is within the Vales of Humber block plan BP 50 and is designated as executive residential. Next slide, please. The subject site is zoned residential rural estate 2. This provision allows for a single detached dwelling supporting housing residence type 1 and other accessory uses to the previously mentioned uses. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to amend the official plan to create a special policy area to permit 1 linked house on the irregularly shaped lot as shown on the screen. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes the rezoning of the subject site to residential single detached and residential semi-detached with a special section. The applicant is proposing 2 new designations, and site-specific provisions are provided for residential lot sizes, including lot area, width, and depth, along with other regulations to facilitate the development. It is important to note that the proposed detached zoning designation has lot dimensions in areas that are consistent with the executive residential official plan and zoning designation. The linked house will also have a similar lot area as the executive residential designation, with exceptions for lot frontages to facilitate the single driveway. Next slide, please. At this time, preliminary issues and considerations that will need to be addressed include providing additional housing in the form of single detached dwellings and a linked house within an existing executive residential community, ensuring lot pattern and dimensions remain appropriate with the existing executive housing designation in the Vales of Humber Secondary Plan. This includes a review of building setbacks, separation distances, and lot areas to ensure the new dwellings fit in the character of the existing neighborhood. Construction activity that may impact the existing community for a short period of time, and the removal of mature trees which may be required to facilitate the development. These issues and others that are raised will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Next slide, please. Staff is hosting a statutory public meeting this evening to share information of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision on the subject site, and provide an opportunity for members of the public to express comments, perspectives, and opinions. Staff will continue to review the applicant's planning rationale and supporting plans, drawings, and technical comments, and staff will advance a final recommendation report for council decision in the future based on the details of the proposed development and applicable planning laws and policies, while incorporating comments and considerations from community members, technical reviewers, and other stakeholders. Staff will also follow up with members of the public and other stakeholders who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. For more information on this development proposal, the applicant's submission materials, including architectural plans, drawings, and supporting studies, are publicly accessible through the city's brand plan online portal. Type the file number of the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2024-0004. This brings up the file page, where by clicking the File Info tab, you will be allowed to view all drawings and documents associated with this development application. Next slide, please. This public meeting presentation will be available as part of the Planning and Development Committee meeting minutes shortly. The final recommendation report will be posted on the city's PDC meeting agenda in advance of a future meeting. For any questions or comments about this development application, please contact myself or the applicant, Stephen Giancoulis, who is representing Siva Ramakrishna Prasad Ari. The corresponding contact information is also shown on the screen. Thank you and have a good evening.
Great job, Sadaf. Thank you. Members, we have one delegation, a few audience members, but we're going to call up Japji Mangat. Mr. Mangat? Is your name Mr. Mangat? If not, stay seated. Anybody online? Seeing none, call out one more time. Mr. Mangat? Nobody? If there's anybody in attendance today that would like to come down and delegate to this item, now's the time to do it. You can come down. We have a book over there that you need to sign in, but I'll ask you just to approach the front and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, respectable councillors. My name is Jatin Chopra. I am a resident of Belladonna Circle. Belladonna Circle.
It's okay. It's okay.
Do I have to sign something?
Nope, after.
So Belladonna Circle is the closest neighborhood to the proposed development on the property, which is 11038 the Go Road. Other residents of Belladonna Circle are also present in this room, who are sitting in the third row to the left of me. So Belladonna Circle consists of only executive type detached homes having a frontage of at least 70 feet. Each house is at least 70 feet, which I emphasize here again. So we as residents are not opposed to the development on the property, but we would want that any proposed development on this property should align with the character and the type of house that are currently situated on Belladonna Circle. My friend who made a submission prior to me mentioned that there are two linked semi-detached homes being proposed on one lot, which is a corner lot. So in response to that, I would say that there are no semi-detached homes anywhere in the subdivision within the four corners, which is Gore Road, Mayfield, McQueen, and Countryside. And this includes Belladonna Circle. So The rest of my submissions are already submitted in my letter to the members of the City of Brampton, but I would emphasize that it would be a grave injustice and prejudice to the residents of the Belladonna Circle and the subdivision in general if any other house other than the existing detached homes that are currently on Belladonna Circle having a frontage of 70 feet are allowed. Anything other than that is allowed would be opposed by the residents, and we want to say that we want to see houses that align with the character and the neighborhood of the subdivision. Those are all my submissions, and I want to keep it simple and straight.
Thank you for your delegation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on forward, and if there's anybody else that would like to come down and put your name on the book, you can do so now. Welcome, young man. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Ryan Balser, and I would like to share my thoughts about this new building proposal in my area. The project is at the corner of Countryside and Gore Road, which is part of the Vales of Humber community. I pass by this spot every day in my school bus. And when I heard about the plan of building 3 houses and 2 semi-detached houses on less than 1.5 acres, I was worried. I didn't understand how they can fit all these buildings into such a small space and make them look like the other houses around them. The Vales of Humber community is supposed to be a special area for big and fancy houses, which is part of the city plans. I've never seen any semi-detached houses here before, and I don't think we should add 2 more now, especially next to big houses which have 3 to 4 car garages. Also, the rules say that they should have around at least 1,100 square meters, but it looks like none of them have it, including the 3 single houses, which have lots. I'm concerned that this project doesn't fit in with the rest of the houses in Vales of Humber, and it won't really look good at the corner.
Thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
Welcome, young lady. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Trisha Balsar. Good evening, members of the council. I stand before you today to express my concerns about the proposed developmental plan of the plot northwest of the intersection of Gore Road and Countryside Road. I urge the council to consider the long-term economic impacts of this plan. While short-term benefits may seem tempting through property taxes, it is essential to evaluate the effect it has on the community. This is an upscale executive residential area. The planned buildings of 3 detached homes and 2 semi-detached homes disrupt the existing character of my community. The proposed built 5 houses on such a small area will be prominently visible through the intersection and are disproportionate compared to the sizes of the other houses in the community. Approximately 36% of the size that we are required to have. The unevenness in design may affect the value of the developments in the area, which relies on the community's decisions. We need to rethink this plan and meet our community standards so we can have a betterment for the Brampton. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. Welcome, Dad.
Thank you, Chairman, for this opportunity. My name is Dr. Satyendra Bhavsar, and I'm here to oppose this proposed development. I live in Vales of Humber, just 2 streets from Belladonna Circle. But I would like everyone to step back for a second and think why we are here today discussing the development of this particular property when that whole Vales of Humber area, which was very nicely described by my fellow citizen before, was developed just like 10 years ago or within last, let's say 10 to 8 years period. Why we are talking now? Because apparently this particular property owner decided to hang on to it for whatever reason, and now it's coming out to develop in a way that doesn't really meet with the requirements that were set for the development of this whole community, that whole area. And that's why we are in need of amending that RE2 status, which is residential executive area. Now, in my opinion, this is not fair in 2 ways. First, I'm sure this whole Vales of Humber area was previously occupied by some isolated houses which were then sold to the developer at that time for whatever price and whatever that would be. But this particular person hold back to it and now trying to develop 5 houses within that lot, which, as I would mention in a few seconds, could not sustain that with the character of the community. So it's not fair to the previous owners who supported the development plan of the city. Second, it's not fair to all the occupiers of the houses in that Vales of Humber community. When I had to pick the brick color, the roof color and all that, I could not pick the one that I wanted because as per the city bylaws requirement, I cannot have the same as my next door neighbor. So we all had to stipulate and bind and follow the requirements of the city when this community was being developed. Now, this proposal comes in which totally shatters all the requirements, or at least all the major requirements that the community was built onto. As it was very nicely highlighted, that particular Belladonna Circle has all the houses, ranging from 70 to like 85 feet or maybe larger lots. The frontage here is not, it's I think half to 1/3 of what we have in that whole area. If you look at the opening from the Belladonna Circle, I think it's hardly 150 feet. So based on the other lot opening sizes, you can sustain maybe 2, at most probably 3 houses, not 5 as it has been described. I can understand why the developer is trying to put 2 semis in that corner, because as it was very nicely described by the Brampton city staff, it's an irregular lot. It's not actually irregular lot. It is kind of a square lot that they are trying to utilize, but it's a corner square lot. If this property would have been developed when the rest of the Vales of Humber was being developed, that whole corner would have been very nicely integrated into the rest of the street, which is not possible anymore because there is a house right beside to that corner lot. So what they are trying to do is give access from that one small corner area with opening of 1/3, because it's a 9-meter minimum requirement, while the current requirement is 27-meter opening minimum. So it's 1/3 of that, and try to give access to 2 houses. So in my opinion, this proposed development is not fair to the previous homeowners in this whole community before it was developed as Vales of Humber community. It's not fair to all the homeowners of that community right now. And again, as other fellow residents supported, I would support development of this area, but it should be in line with the rest of the Vales of Humber community the way it was developed without any amendment to the requirements. So thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward to hearing more.
Thank you very much for your delegation. You should be a proud father of those 2. They did an excellent job as well. Anybody else like to come down and delegate? Now is the time to do so. Anybody else on the list? Anybody online? Seeing none, we'll bring forward the item 7.2, the staff report provincial, no. Have you written your name down in the book?
Yes, I did.
You did? Yeah. Come forward, please.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity here. So on the behalf of the residents of the Belladonna Circle, I'm here to oppose the development as it is proposed. And you have heard the reasons from other members which are pretty much in line. I only want to bring up 2 more points. One is, when these lots were sold, they carry a premium. The premium was because of the nature of the street, facing a big chunk of a green space. If you have seen the pictures, there are mature lots in that lot, and I'm pretty sure they are home to a lot of species or a ecosystem itself. So I want to highlight this point to the council that this will impact that as well, and it will be detrimental for the street immediately in the vicinity of those houses. Other than that, I think the points have been well covered, so just wanted to make sure that we look at these from a green impact as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your delegation as well. That concludes the delegations. I'll have to ask one more time, is there anybody in the audience today that would like to come down and delegate on this item? Seeing none, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Singh that the staff presentation application amend the official plan and zoning bylaw for a draft plan of subdivision Cam Devcon on behalf of Siva Rama Krishna Prasad Ari at 11038 Gore Road, Ward 10, be received, and then the delegation listed on the screen also be received at this time. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is 7.1 is done. 7.2 is the Provincial Planning Statement 2024. Correct? And we have Jessica is here. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, staff, and everyone here today. I'm Jessica Yadav, and I'm here today to present an overview of the new Provincial Planning Statement 2024, and specifically speak to some of the key changes and implications to the city. Next slide, please. On April 6, 2023, the province of Ontario introduced a proposal to integrate the Provincial Policy Statement 2020 and a place to grow the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe into a new proposed provincial planning statement. Staff reported to Council on the proposed provincial planning statement on May 31st, 2023, and submitted Council-endorsed comments to the province. About a year later, on April 10th, 2024, the province introduced a revised draft provincial planning statement. Staff reported to Council on the revised PPS on May 1st, 2024, and submitted Council-endorsed comments to the province. Since then, on August 20th, 2024, the province introduced the final provincial planning statement under the Planning Act, which will officially come into effect on October 20th, 2024. The Provincial Policy Statement 2020 and the Growth Plan will be repealed on the same day. Overall, the province has addressed some, but not all, of the city's comments that were previously submitted on previous drafts of the PPS. Next slide, please. The next few slides will be a summary of the key changes and implications that the city can expect once the provincial planning statement is in effect and the PPS 2020 and growth plan are repealed. Starting with growth forecasts, the province will no longer establish minimum population and employment forecasts for municipalities to adopt. Planning authorities must now establish growth forecasts on their own and must base forecasts on the following options and may modify them as appropriate. And the options are using previously established growth plan forecasts or Ontario population projections published by the Ministry of Finance. And again, municipalities are able to modify them as appropriate. The key implication here is the lack of consistency that will result between municipalities conducting their own forecasting. Previously, this was coordinated at a regional and provincial level, but now without this coordination, we may see challenges with servicing capacity for new growth, skewed funding allocations, and skewed growth allocations for urban areas. Next, the concept of municipal comprehensive reviews has not been carried forward from the growth plan. Municipalities are able to consider and review employment land conversions and settlement area boundary expansions at any time, rather than comprehensively as was done previously through the MCR process. With this, there is a risk that the city will not be able to protect employment lands and will fall short on meeting job targets, since landowners can request employment conversions at any time and without the stringent criteria of MCRs. There's also concerns about settlement area boundary expansions of other neighboring municipalities, which can impact the cost Brampton residents have to bear due to servicing through the region of Peel. Next slide, please. Diving deeper into the employment policies, again, employment conversions can be requested at any time, and the tests to be met for a conversion include establishing that there is a need for the removal of employment land and that the land is not required for employment uses over the long term. Provincially significant employment zones will no longer exist under the new PPS, and the definition of employment areas has been revised in the Planning Act and the new PPS. A key change in this definition is that primary retail and office uses have been excluded from the definition. This is a major change and will have implications for how the city is able to protect employment lands, and it also impacts the types of employment land conversions that are protected from appeal. There are still some aspects of implementation of the new definition that are unclear, specifically in combination with existing lawfully established employment uses under the old definition, and staff are working to determine an approach for this change and are collaborating with other municipalities to do so. Next, large and fast-growing municipalities is a new term in the PPS 2024, defined through a list of municipalities that qualify, including the City of Brampton. The list includes the same municipalities required to commit to a municipal housing pledge. Large and fast-growing municipalities will be encouraged to plan for a density target of 50 residents and jobs per gross hectare for the designated growth areas, or DGAs. DGAs are a concept that have been carried forward from the growth plan, but with softened policy. Previously, municipalities were required to plan for a certain amount of growth within settlement areas, but now the PPS only encourages, but doesn't require Brampton to meet the 50 residents and jobs per hectare density target for designated growth areas. The softened language can weaken the city's efforts to achieve higher densities in designated growth areas. Next slide, please. The concept of urban growth centers and the associated minimum density targets have also not been carried forward from the growth plan. For Brampton, the Downtown Brampton Urban Growth Center was required to be planned for a minimum density of 200 residents and jobs per gross hectare, which is no longer required. And related to this, planning authorities are also encouraged to identify and focus growth and development in strategic growth areas, and the definition of strategic growth area has been revised to include existing and emerging downtowns and land adjacent to publicly assisted post-secondary institutions. The addition of existing and emerging downtowns in the definition of strategic growth area seems to be an attempt to reconcile the removal of urban growth centers, many of which were existing and emerging downtowns, but the associated minimum density targets are not carried over, which can impact the city's efforts to increase both resident and job density in urban areas. Next slide, please. A key change for housing is that policies in the growth plan which direct planning authorities to establish targets for rental housing have not been carried forward in the new PPS, which will impact the city because these targets help to identify key intentions to deliver a full mix and range of housing options based on resident needs. They also provide key performance indicators for the development industry in supporting the delivery of a full mix and range of housing options. The city may still choose to maintain targets for rental housing, however, there will be a lack of justification and support through provincial policy. Next, there's a significant reduction in policies throughout the plan that require municipalities to plan for climate change. Some key policies have been weakened or removed entirely, and only softer policies remain. Related to this, the growth plan policies and mapping related to the natural heritage system have not been carried forward into the new PPS. The lack of NHS-related mapping and policies will cause a loss of connectivity and increased disruptions to the greater NHS system as municipalities may adopt different methodologies to identify the NHS. Next slide, please. I'll wrap up now with a summary of implications and next steps. Overall, much of the critical targets and mapping that municipalities were required to implement previously under the PPS 2020 and growth plan have become optional, and some new responsibilities have been passed down to municipalities through the PPS 2024 and also through changes in regional planning responsibilities. Highlighting employment area policies specifically, the weakened employment area definition and policies may reduce the city's ability to meet employment forecasts. The figure on the screen shows forecasted employment under the growth plan compared to actual employment rates in Brampton from 2006 to 2021. You'll notice that in 2021, which was the last census year, forecasted employment targets were not met. There's a number of reasons for this. However, the city's ability to achieve forecasted employment growth will be further reduced due to the greater risk of conversion to non-employment uses and due to new policies and definitions surrounding employment areas. Next slide, please. Moving forward, staff have identified next steps to move towards implementation of the new PPS. Staff will determine an approach to address the issue of employment lands that may no longer qualify as protected under the new PPS and Planning Act definition of employment areas. Regarding the official plan, according to the Planning Act, there's no requirement or deadline for bringing official plans into conformity with the new PPS. Brampton Plan should be revised to be consistent with the PPS 2024 at its next scheduled review, which must occur within 10 years of the new OP coming into effect. Regardless, once the policy statement comes into effect on October 20th, 2024, any decisions of council must be consistent with the new PPS, and for this reason, staff recommend initiating a review of Brampton Plan to ensure consistency with the PPS 2024, and will report back to council with a detailed plan prior to initiating the review. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time today, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Great job. There's a ton of information in there. Just one member, sorry, Deputy Mayor Singh.
The one area that does concern me, is the employment policies. You know, your map is obviously, that's important, but I feel like you're right, it will get worse with these type of policy changes. So when we're talking about no need for MCRs anymore, when we're talking about the removal of provincially significant employment zones, that can be worrisome. So the one thing I noticed though in the second line is the tests to be met include establishing that there is a need for the removal. Are the tests always with the city itself, or is there any other, for example, the MCR went to the region to be passed, if I'm correct, Am I correct in that? The MCRs were done at the region?
100%.
Yeah, right? So that's gone. So it's all in the hands of the city now, I'm assuming, or does the province have any role in that?
Through the chair, so the city would be responsible for that. I believe when the city makes a decision on employment conversions, there is an opportunity for employment conversions specifically. Previously it was done through MCRs. There is an opportunity for anyone to appeal that decision, but previously it was done through the region. Now it'll be city council's decision.
So a member of the public, I guess, could appeal a removal or a change out of employment.
Through the chair, there are protections in place. I believe if the use falls under the new employment area definition, if it's a removal from those employment areas, there are protected appeal rights. However, now that the definition has changed, if it's an existing use that no longer falls under the employment area definition and that is being converted, there are no appeal rights for that currently.
Okay. Yeah, do you have any? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I think just this portion of it, if we could tease it out a little bit more, exactly, because this will, I can imagine, will open up some sort of floodgates very soon. And we should be very prepared. For example, it says tests. What are those tests exactly?
So, I'm just going to refer to my notes quickly.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay if you don't have all the answers to it.
No, when you come
Yeah.
back,
Okay.
I think that's when we
Yeah,
want
I'm
to
saying
look
we
at
need
that,
to
because
tease
it's new
it.
for
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But we should be as prepared as much as possible before the application come in, and council should be prepared because it's going to have a significant impact. And as a council that's really pushed for more employment, especially, over the last few years, in my opinion, we need to do as much to protect employment zones. So that's my opinion, but I'll wait for more information to come back. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I think my take on some of this, when they first implemented the MCRs and having to go up to the region, I didn't like the fact that the region was playing such a key role in determining any of the conversions. Although I like the fact that it was a little bit more difficult to change employment to residential. Now, with that being said, getting rid of the provincially significant employment lands is not such a bad thing, because you look at some of the ones that are around you look at like the GO Station, for instance. The GO Station, in Bramley GO Station, we need residential in that area. Like, it's a great employment node, but there needs to be, because of the such a higher order transit. So there's definitely a balance. I don't, getting rid of the minimum density, the minimum numbers, doesn't really mean anything to us, as long as we continue to track the numbers that we are bringing in and we are using to ensure that those the benefits that the residents of Brampton get from the other levels of government are based on the population, the size, the increase of size. So we still need to track the numbers. Minimum and maximums never really mattered anyways, because no municipality ever met the minimum and maximum under any of the NEOPs. So not a major concern, but I think that it's super important for us to continue with a lot of the issues for the city. It's super important for us to continue to track, especially when you're looking to council, listening to council, and council's really asking for data on making decisions. So the data that's that the province is no longer saying we require still needs to be required for us making any types of decisions, right? So I think it's important that we continue to track as much as we can, and I think we also need to come up with a strategic way to have it difficult for employment conversions, whether that be some kind of interim control bylaw or something, maybe not as cumbersome as the MCR, but something needs to be done, because we can't just have everybody coming in now and in converting employment to residential. That being said, we're at a unique point in the city of Brampton where residential is taking a little bit of a dip, and retail is really that next big thing that's kind of making the money for all the developers and stuff because of the lack of retail in the city of Brampton now. So with any of the new, I was rounding it out to this question, with any of the new changes, has the province changed their mind, and do they recognize all types of employment as employment, or do they only recognize the higher levels of employment as employment numbers?
Through the chair, the new definition recognizes manufacturing and warehousing types of uses as employment. I think it specifically excludes retail and office and institutional from the definition.
So retail isn't a number that they recognize as an employment. Never have. And they should. Or it should be a percentage of which. But there's a lot of people that work at, I made this statement before, there's people that work at Costco and they have a good life and that's a good job for them. But there's also people that have two jobs, both in the retail field, and also have. So I don't know when the province can get their head out. I mean, I don't realize, it would be nice that if the province would identify some of those numbers as employment and treat people a little bit more equal. But Steve?
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Pleshy. Excellent commentary. And the reason why the team had asked Jessica to present the graph that showed the delta between our forecast and what we're actually achieving is because I truly feel we are at a critical time. When we look at our jobs to population ratio in the city, we're just at about 32%. Our target's 40%. So with the ability for the typical residential developer to now make the case that land's historically protected for office, and what we believe still should be protected for office or employment could be residential, could put the city at tremendous risk going forward to maintaining or achieving that 40%. We'll continue to have outflow of people leaving Brampton to other destinations for jobs. And the recent data produced by Dr. Mike Moffat about 2 weeks ago, it has shown that GTA municipalities, including Brampton, were losing the young folks like Jessica and whatnot to go to other cities because of affordability. So the MCR conversion is something that we're seriously going to have to keep an eye on. And one thought that the team will do is as we get these conversion requests, we can bring graphs similar to what Jessica showed to see what a decision like that might make in totality as opposed to just a one-off decision.
Okay, thanks Steve for those comments, and looking forward to more. Councilor Vincent, I apologize. Sit on the board.
No problem, Mr. Chair. I think that as we continue to see the province trying and working so hard to shift everyone's focus to the residential piece of the work that we do here, that should not diminish our focus on continuing to find opportunities to create job and employment opportunities. So in many ways, the removal of these requirements and restrictions from the province is an opportunity for us to be able to also strengthen our own policies. And is there a way that staff would be able to come back so that we are presented with the tools to be able to require employment, residential, in the right mix? How can we do that?
Through the chair, through to you, Councilor Vicente, absolutely. We can come back with a report that shows you some of the things that we have been doing. In fact, your comment ties to the report later on in the agenda on the Airport Road Mayfield tertiary plan, whereby, again, through work with the team, we've come up with a bit of a gating process to ensure that employment is protected prior to percentage of residential units being released. So that is certainly something that we can do, and it was an approach we used in the recently approved Heritage Heights secondary plan through mediation, where we came up with a bit of a gating process through the policy regime, so we'd be happy to report back with that.
So, and through chair, so that means that it continues to be within the purview of the municipality to manage and control those numbers, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess finally I'll wrap up with saying, Steve, and everybody's on this big push to deliver housing, and there was a massive push to deliver affordable housing. And Brampton has some great affordable housing units coming in the pipeline, which is fantastic. But the message that's going out there is deliver housing, deliver housing, deliver housing. You go on MLS right now, there's a ton of products out there. Not only, it's a buyer's market right now. I've seen a house firsthand that sold in the people bought it in 2022 for $2 million. It's on the market today for $1.2 million. That is a massive hit, and it's the same all the way across the board from every level, size of house. So at some point, the houses are being delivered. You look at the development industry, and you have some that have went past that line where they had to sell. Now you have some that are banking land, and that's how we got into this predicament in the first place. So there's a storm coming. I think we just need to figure out, what it is and how do we get past it. And I don't believe that any changes from the province, I don't think they're helping.
Through the chair, certainly when we signed the municipal housing pledge to reach our 113,000, it was our part to participate in the provincial narrative to build more housing, and I don't think anybody has argued that. But one thing, this council has been very proactive in particularly around housing intensification. It's about complete communities. So we need to acknowledge that we need to build housing, but we just want to make sure that it's not irresponsible growth and just shelter. It's all about providing complete communities. So certainly something that the team will take away from tonight's comments from council as our report back. Will continue to provide council with KPIs around potential impacts to our jobs and population targets, and what happens if we were to start to lose critical areas to employment.
Thanks, Steve. Councillor Santos.
Thanks so much to you, Mr. Chair, and I'm liking where this is going because with some of these changes again that are being brought forward by the province, I think there are definitely implications. So, for example, Steve and team, our work that's being done to create safe spaces with ARUs and licensing of these units to make sure that they are safe, as well as things related to complete communities. Like if they're going to also change how we deal with congestion and how we deal with moving people around, then I think we might also have to look at those minimum parking spots that we removed in some of the intensification applications. Like if the province is going to force us to be more reliant on the car, then obviously those applications will need more parking. So there are implications, and so I'm happy this is going to come back.
Thank you, Councillor Santos, and great point. Vehicles are something that we're going to need to get into, and specifically our streets. Our streets are getting more and more congested, and we need to start looking at something along the lines of support. And I know that there's this is public works, so it's there's street lighting, AI components, and everything. Regardless, I'm rambling. Jessica, fantastic job. Thank you very much. I see no other questions. Councillor Vincente would be happy to move the report. Look forward to any future discussions on this item. All in favor? That carries. 7.3. Temporary use of subject lands for outdoor storage, motor vehicles, tractors, trailers, consisting of 554 parking bays, including intermodal shipping containers on the subject property. It's a staff report application to temporarily zoning bylaw amendment, Countryside Real Estate Holdings, Pearl Builders, SGL Planning and Design, Inc., 0 Countryside Drive, Ward 10. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. All in favor? That carries. Item 7.4 is a city-initiated official plan amendment to the Vales of Castlemore North, Secondary Plan Area 49, Ward 10. Tristan Costa is not here. but somebody else can answer any questions. If you have any, I don't see any questions. Been moved by Councillor Tour. All in favor? Favor? All opposed? All in favor? Carries. 11.2 and 11.3 correspondence. We'll wrap those up into one package. Has been moved by Councillor Vincente, the correspondence for those items. All in favor? That carries. The last is councillor question period. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none. Public question period. Any members, any questions from anybody in the public that would like to come up and ask any questions? Now is your time to do so. Any questions come in online? Seeing none. We have no closed session. Been moved by Councillor Santos. Adjournment, all in favor. That carries. Our next regular scheduled meeting is Monday, October the 21st. Nope, that was canceled. No, that wasn't canceled. Canceled the 7th, so it is the 21st, 2024 at 1 p.m. or at the call of the chair. Have a great evening, everybody.